Right now, somewhere in your body, an alarm might be going off. Not because of danger in the room, not because of anything you can see. You might be sitting alone, scrolling, waiting for a text back, and your body is treating that silence like a threat. That sounds dramatic. It isn't. The real answer is far stranger than you think. Loneliness is not just a feeling. It is a survival signal. It evolved for a reason. And that reason has almost nothing to do with your feelings and everything to do with staying alive. Think about the last time you felt truly alone. Maybe it was a quiet apartment. Maybe it was a crowded room where nobody looked at you. Your chest might have tightened. Your thoughts might have sped up. You might have reached for your phone without even deciding to. That reaction wasn't random. It was ancient. For most of human history, being alone did not mean a quiet evening. It meant exposure. It meant no one to watch your back while you slept. It meant no one to help you carry food, fight off predators, or care for you if you got hurt. A lone human out on the open savanna 200,000 years ago was not free. A lone human was prey. So the body built an alarm system. A feeling sharp and uncomfortable whose entire job was to say, "Get back to the group, now." This feeling is loneliness. And it was never designed to make you comfortable. It was designed to make you move. The psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying this exact mechanism. He described loneliness as a biological signal, similar to hunger or thirst. Hunger tells you your body is low on fuel. Thirst tells you your body is low on water. Loneliness, Cacioppo argued, tells you your body is low on something just as critical: connection. Here is the part that should stop you. Cacioppo's research found that chronic loneliness does not just feel bad. It changes your biology. It raises levels of stress hormones. It disrupts sleep. It weakens the immune system. Your body, still running on instructions written for a much older world, does not distinguish between "I am alone in my apartment" and "I am alone on the savannah with no one to protect me." To your nervous system, both are emergencies. Why would evolution build something so harsh? Because for almost the entire span of human existence, isolation was often a death sentence. Humans are not fast. We do not have claws or fangs built for battle. What we had was each other. Group living meant more eyes watching for danger, more hands to gather food, more warmth on cold nights, more people to notice when something was wrong. A human alone lost nearly every one of those advantages. So, natural selection did something ruthless and effective. It made isolation feel unbearable. Individuals who felt intense discomfort when separated from the group were more likely to seek their way back. They were more likely to survive. They were more likely to pass on that same wiring. Generation after generation, the humans who felt loneliness most sharply were often the ones who lived long enough to reproduce. You are, quite literally, descended from the most socially anxious humans who ever lived. That is not an insult. That is the reason you exist. Now, here is the twist most people never learn. Loneliness is not simply the absence of people around you. You can be surrounded by others and still feel it. You can sit in a packed room, phone buzzing with messages, and still feel that same ancient alarm. Why? Because the alarm was never really about physical proximity. It was about belonging, about being seen, valued, and integrated into a group that would help you if something went wrong. A crowd of strangers does not satisfy that ancient requirement. Neither does a feed full of updates from people who do not know your name. This is where the story gets darker and more relevant to your life than you might expect. In 2010, the researcher Julianne Holt-Lundstad led a massive analysis combining data from more than 300,000 people, tracking how social connection related to mortality risk. The results were staggering. People with weak social ties had a risk of early death comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, comparable to obesity, comparable to physical inactivity. Read that again. Isolation, in terms of your risk of dying early, can be as dangerous as a pack of cigarettes a day. That is not a metaphor. That is what large-scale human data shows, again and again across different countries, different age groups, different decades of research. Why would something so intangible, something you cannot see under a microscope, carry a risk that heavy? Because your body was never built to separate emotional safety from physical safety. To your nervous system, the two are the same category of threat. When you feel excluded, insulted, ignored, or forgotten, your brain activates regions overlapping with the ones that respond to physical pain. Being left out does not just feel bad in a poetic sense. It registers, biologically, as an injury. This is why rejection can feel like a punch to the stomach. This is why a friend not replying to a message for days can spiral into hours of anxious thinking. Your ancestors who ignored those signals, who shrugged off exclusion as unimportant, were the ones who often drifted from the group and did not come back. You're not descended from them. There is an experiment decades old now that made this brutally visible. In the 1950s, the psychologist Harry Harlow studied infant rhesus monkeys separated from their mothers. He gave them 2 artificial replacement mothers. One was made of bare wire but held a bottle of milk. The other was covered in soft cloth but offered no food at all. Logic says the infants should have clung to the wire mother, the one that fed them. They did not. They clung to the cloth mother for comfort, only leaving briefly to feed from the wire one, before rushing back to the soft, warm shape that offered no nutrition at all. Contact and comfort mattered more than food. When infants were isolated completely with no mother figure of any kind, the outcomes were severe. Some monkeys became withdrawn. Some developed repetitive, distressed behaviors. Some struggled for the rest of their lives to form normal social bonds. Harlow's work, unsettling as it is, revealed something that still applies far beyond monkeys. Connection is not a luxury layered on top of survival. For social creatures like us, it is closer to a biological requirement, sitting right beside food, water, and shelter. You may be thinking, this all makes sense for ancient humans on the savannah, or infant monkeys in a lab. But what does it have to do with you tonight, in a world of smartphones and instant messages? Here is the uncomfortable part. You have never had more ways to contact people. And yet loneliness, according to public health researchers across multiple countries, has been climbing for years. Surveys in the United States, the United Kingdom, and beyond have repeatedly found rising numbers of people, especially young adults, reporting they have no close friends they can turn to. How is that possible in the most connected era in human history? Because your ancient alarm system was not built to recognize a text message as belonging. It was built for something much more physical. Shared meals, shared work, eye contact, physical presence, being noticed and remembered by people who see you regularly in person over time. A notification is not the same signal your body evolved to respond to. It can feel like connection for a moment, but it rarely satisfies the deeper mechanism underneath. This is why you can spend hours online talking to dozens of people and still lie awake feeling completely unseen. There is a researcher named Robert Waldinger who directs one of the longest-running studies on human happiness ever conducted, tracking the lives of hundreds of people and their families across more than 80 years. Decade after decade, one finding kept surfacing above almost everything else. The people who stayed healthiest and lived the longest, happiest lives were not the wealthiest, or the most famous, or the most accomplished. They were the ones with strong, warm relationships they could rely on, not the number of friends listed anywhere. The quality of a few real bonds. This lines up almost perfectly with what your ancient body has been telling you all along. You were never built to survive alone, and you were never built to feel satisfied by a crowd of strangers either. You were built for a small, dependable circle, people who would notice if you disappeared. So, why does modern life so often leave that circle thin? Consider how differently humans used to live. For most of human history, people spent their entire lives inside tight communities of maybe 50 to 150 individuals, a number the anthropologist Robin Dunbar later identified as a natural upper limit for stable social relationships in the human brain. Everyone in that group knew your face, your voice, your role. You were embedded whether you liked it or not. Modern life scattered that structure. People move cities for work, families spread across continents. Entire days can pass interacting mostly with screens instead of faces. None of this makes you weak or broken or unusual. It makes you a creature whose ancient safety system is reacting exactly the way it was designed to react, inside a world that no longer resembles the one it was built for.